Oh lordy, it's been a little while since I made a video about a book. Do you guys ever have those times when you go to a bookstore and you see something that you really want to get, so you buy it, but then you take it home and you just never end up reading the book? It goes on the shelf, it sits there for like 6 months, and you pass by it every time you go past the shelf and you just ignore its existence. Yeah, that's like 80% of my library, but that's also what happened to today's book. The Cat Who Saved Books by Sosuke Natsukawa. So I was on holiday like, I don't know, 4 months ago or something, and I was like in a bookstore. There's a small little bookstore on the coast. It's quite nice. And I really wanted something to read on the way home, and I didn't have anything to read because it was quite a long journey home. And I saw this book, and I thought that, you know what? The front cover looks very cute, doesn't it? There's a nice cat on the front cover. It looks very nice. You see a little gold flecks through the front cover. Very pretty book. I read the blurb. I thought it sounded kind of fun. So I picked it up. I didn't read it on the way home. Got no reason for you. I just didn't read it on the way home. And I put it on my bedside table pretty much for the past 4 months. Didn't read it. My late cat, God rest his soul. In his final weeks, he continually kept knocking it onto the ground, the little bugger. I mean, you can see here. The corner's all busted. That's not from me, that's from him. I don't know what he was trying to tell me. Either he was trying to tell me that he really wanted me to read it, or he was just bored out of his mind. Either one, I don't know. But since he's unfortunately passed, I thought it would be time for me to read the book. Sitting around, don't have a whole lot going on, and I thought it could be kind of fun, right? So I delved into it. I delved into The Cat Who Saved Books. He definitely didn't save this book. If anything, he caused it a little bit of damage on the corners. But I'll let that slide because I love the little shit. Now, as you might be able to guess, this is a Japanese novel written in Japanese, which means it is a translated book. It's translated by... It's a really cute name, actually. Translated by Louise Heal Kawai. It's only got one I at the end. Do you pronounce that differently? Is it still Kawai? I don't know. But this is actually the first book that Sosuke Natsukawa has done that's been translated into English. I think they've done a couple of other books since, but this is the first one that's in English, translated by Louise. I've read a couple of books that have, been written in Japanese first and then translated into English. And I will say that even though the books end up still being good in the end, I've found that a couple of the translations end up being either a little dry or a little stiff, particularly when characters are talking to one another. So I was a little hesitant to jump into this one. I really liked the premise, which I'll get into shortly, but I want to say that Louise has, I believe, taken some liberties with not only the way characters speak to one another, but also with the basic wording, the prose, and it's come across very, very well. I will say that anyone that's cautious of translated works, don't worry about it here. The prose is actually very, very smooth, and the translation is actually very well done. I will say that as far as Japanese to English translations go, this might be the best one that I've read. So I'll give that praise to Louise there. Good job, Louise. Very well done. So what's the book about? I've been waffling on for minutes at this point, and I haven't even gotten to what it's about. Jesus Lord. Now, bit of a somber subject, but the book starts off with, I believe he's a high schooler. I don't know how schooling systems in other countries work. They're weird. We just have primary school and secondary school here in Australia. I believe he's a high schooler by the name of Rintaro Natsuki, who his grandfather, who he lived with, has unfortunately passed. Together, they lived at Natsuki Books. So Rintaro's lost his grandfather. He's in high school, so he still doesn't really know what he's doing with his life. And he's also, even before his grandfather passed, is a bit of a hikikomori, which if you don't know that term, it's basically a shut-in. He goes to school, but he doesn't really do things outside of school. When he's done at school, he mainly comes home, helps his grandfather with the shop, reads books, drinks tea, sort of stays inside a little bit. Kind of like your average content creator. I mean, that's all I do. Am I a hikikomori? So this high schooler, Rintaro, is dealing with his grief, and he doesn't really know what to do about it. He's sort of just operating the bookstore and not going to school, kind of ignoring his duties, when a tabby cat shows up from the back of the bookstore and says that it needs Rintaro's help. Help with what, you may ask? Well, turns out that there's some weird portals in the back of the bookstore, and the cat needs Rintaro's help to go to these fantastical places called labyrinths and save some books. Simple concept, right? Yeah, absolutely, simple. So basically, Rintaro's sad, grieving for a family member, magical talking cat shows up, cat needs Rintaro's help, Rintaro goes on journey with cat, helps save some books. Because if there's one thing that Rintaro loves, it's books. He's lived in this bookstore all his life. It's the one thing that he bonded with his grandfather about. He loves books. That's our main character. Dude absolutely froths a good book. There are a couple of other characters in the mix, but as you can see, it's not an overly long book. It's only about like roughly 200 pages or so. There's not a whole lot of room for different characters here. There's a couple of other characters that get thrown into the mix, and I will say that they're all pretty likable, good characters, but it mainly focuses on Rintaro and maybe 2 or 3 other people. There's not really a whole lot of room here for a lot of character work. You're mainly dealing with Rintaro and his journey. One thing I will say is that when it comes to these labyrinths, I actually find that the book is really, really good at being able to convey a picture. I think that's like the real big skill of this book, is the fact that you go to all these locations, right? And you can really, really picture them. It does a really great... I don't know if it's the original text was just this good at it, or it's the translation in particular, but I found that throughout the book, I was really, really able to like see and watch everything as it was happening in my mind, if that makes sense. I found this book was actually really good at painting a picture and letting you go with it. As I said, it's not a long book. It doesn't have a whole lot of characters. It's mainly focusing on one boy going through his grief, going on a journey, and sort of... It's like a coming of age story. It's like a journey to find yourself through these adventures. And I will say it does a really, really great job of actually doing that. It's a simple story. You're not going to get any complex sort of things here. It's just a boy philosophizing. Philosophizing? Yeah, that's the right word, right? About what it is to love books, what it is to be someone who's proud of themselves, and sort of what it means to find your own way in the world. And I really like that. It's a simple story, but it's told really, really well. So I will give it props for that. The story's not gonna blow your mind, and the story is pretty family friendly. I would say that anyone from maybe 10 and up can read this. There's not any violence really. There's not any overly mature themes outside of the family death, which is not handled in an overly gloomy manner at all. This is definitely a book for teens especially, who need something to sort of relate to, because as a teen you really struggle with finding yourself and finding your purpose in life. And I think that this book is actually a really, really good book for that. So if you're looking for something deeper, something a little more complex, this might not be the book for you. But if you want a fairly nice time about a teen coming of age, going through some hardships in life and just wanting to find themselves, I would actually really recommend this book. I hope I haven't left anything major out of this. It's been a long, long time since I made a video on books, and I will say that like I had a million thoughts coming into it and they're all going right off the back of my head. You know what this book actually kind of reminded me of? In the same way that like Kamen Rider 4's reminded me of Persona 4, this book kind of reminds me of Persona 5, and that's a little bit of a reach. It's a little bit of a weird reference, but that might sell 1 or 2 of yous on it. And if it does, let me know in the comments if it reminds you of Persona 5. Not because of a large ensemble cast, not because of great big battles or anything like that, but the basic premise of going to the labyrinths and like sorting out an issue and then coming back to the real world just reminded me a lot of Persona 5 for some reason, which, you know what, definitely not a bad thing. Okay, hopefully I haven't left out anything major from this little review. If I had to give this book a score out of 5 stars, because I know that like book stuff goes out of stars, I would probably give it, look, if I wasn't going through a pretty hard time myself and I wasn't going through a little bit of my own grieving process, I'd probably give it a 3, maybe, but it actually struck a bit of a chord with me. I will admit, this book struck a little bit of a chord. It was actually a really, really nice time. I like really heartwarming books. I don't know about you guys. I like a nice heartwarming. People find it's weird that my favorite book is like Wind of the Willows. But it's such a nice, heartwarming time, and I think I think that's like my thing. I think I really like heartwarming books. I'm gonna give The Cat Who Saved Books 4 stars out of 5. If you liked the review, give it a thumbs up. If you hated the review and I did a terrible job, give me a thumbs down. Let me know what books down below that I should review next. I think I've got another one on my bedside table right now, the Midnight Library. I don't know if that's actually what it's called, but it's got another cat in the front cover, and it sounds pretty cool. So that might be the next book that I read. Give me some recommendations, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!